I get a... I'm at the Starbucks.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, babe?
You realize what's happening now.
What?
This is going to be the opening clip in the Rosewrist Burns Destiny Bridge in like a year and a half from now. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be black and white, some sad music playing, and then it's gonna like go through the sequence of events. And this is gonna be like the opening of us having like a friendly conversation with each other.
Good. I'm glad.
All right, good to know. Good to know that we're on the same page there. But yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing? When the fuck do you sleep? What time is it over there?
It's fine now. Well, okay, it's 1:30 a.m. But I fell asleep at like fucking 8 a.m. yesterday. So there's no way I'm falling asleep quite yet. So I'm gonna have this conversation. I'm gonna try to like wind down and get to bed. But it's sleep schedule's fucked. It's rough out here. But yeah, I'll try to figure it out. By the way, have you remember we were joking about like Baked and his case and everything? I sent you something on Discord. Have you seen this? That tweet.
Nope. What is this?
Check it out.
Do I want to watch the? Should I? Okay.
You don't have to watch. I mean, you can just you can look at what it says and then you can. Yeah.
But can I just watch it? It's a.
Oh, go ahead. If you want to watch it, go watch it.
Okay. Let me.
I mean, I go IRL to protest all the time. I mean, I'm not some like, decorated New York Times journalist. I mean, I don't even really consider myself a journalist other than.
Okay, hold on. Wait, okay, you should. So, I don't think you should ever say that, right? If a big part of your defense is going to be you as a journalist, why would you ever say publicly you don't consider yourself a journalist?
No, I'm saying I don't see myself as like a New York Times journalist.
Occupy the Capitol, let's go! We ain't leaving this bitch! I am sleeping in this room. I call this chair.
Barstool Sports or something, or that's a bad example too. Like, Washington Post and Jake Paul. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm a troll. I'm a content creator. Yes, I report on the news. I make funny videos. So yes, technically I am a journalist, I guess.
I am
We got
Global
over
Dem
10,000 people
I will
live
not ditch you in the middle of the day as I
Let's
am
go!
an alcoholic.
10,000 people live watching. Let's go! America first! 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 Let's go!
I'm more of just like an entertainer, and I go and interview people. I see what's going on in real time. So that's different. I don't write fucking articles and shit like that. That's what I'm saying.
Dude, don't. I'm going. Stop shoving me. No, you got a fucking problem. You're a fucking oath breaker, you piece of shit. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. You piece of shit. You broke your oath to the Constitution. Fuck you. Fucking shoving me and shit for no reason. What the fuck? These fucking oath breakers shoving me and shit.
And so IRL streamers are important, and I think it's stupid to just
Wait, do police swear an oath to the Constitution? I thought it was just like military people. I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I think it's more of like depending on your department probably. But yeah, it's hold
on.
It's very possible now.
30 more seconds.
say like, oh, they're not real, they're not real journalists. You got to be part of these big companies. No, you can work for yourself. You can do that for a living. And I think you have every right to be there. I don't think it's right to just throw you in jail for a year because you're covering an event. Yes, of course, I agree with the protest. I'm a Trump supporter. I think the election was fraudulent. But I don't think I should go to jail for that. So that's why I'm fighting it in court.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so it looks like we're actually going to be presented to a jury at some point, maybe. So that's.
Well, wait, who is this guy? Why? Do you...
I mean,
yeah,
I
it's
go
like a
IRL.
verified account. That's why I picked it up and said. I'm not sure who this person is, but I just saw a little tick and I was like, wow.
Oh, cute. Well.
But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. And it does seem like police officers do swear an oath to the Constitution. So.
Oh, okay. Cute.
Seem to be on board with that. But yeah, how do you think that it went overall?
Seemed to go okay, I guess. Kind of.
Yeah, I think that.
Nick is very good at like talking around things when he doesn't want to answer a question. The format is kind of what fucked us the most. Like, I didn't like that, like, every time we wanted to... I think Nick knew that he was... It's a loser of an argument, because as soon as you'd ask him kind of a specific question, he would just talk around it for, like, a minute and a half every single time. It's like, okay, this is kind of dumb.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, there's no way... There's no way, like, Brittany was just letting him talk for 1 minute and then cut him off, because it just felt like, okay, has it been a minute right now? It really feels like it's been a minute. But yeah, I don't know. We just kind of got stuck there for a while. But I agree. We definitely like got distracted a bit, and he was able to talk for quite long. So the format probably would have been good if we could agree to that at some point, like at the beginning. But yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get Brittany. That's what I was trying to. Someone was like, Brittany, please put 1 minute timers on cheese. But then she like wouldn't. So it's like, but.
Yeah, I had the exact same thing. I had a debate with Mark Collett, who's like another like really far right dude, and the same thing with Politically Provoked as well, where Brittany was like, okay, you know, we're gonna let Rose speak a little bit, and then just Mark just kept talking, and just Brittany just didn't do anything. She just kind of sat there. And I was like, you know, I'm just gonna let you finish your thing. Okay, now let Rose speak a little bit, and then fucking Mark kept going, whatever, and nothing really happened. So yeah, I guess when we're on Politically Provoked, we gotta be really like on top of it, I guess, when it comes to being more assertive, and that's one of the main things I've received. Now, when it came to, of course, I think that I think one of the strongest points of this was that because we didn't get to speak much during the thing because Nick would go on and on, but fortunately our combined preparations for the opening statements counted for quite a bit, and I think that was like relatively important thing compared to everything else. So I'm happy we put that work in.
True. Yeah, I feel like when it just comes to some of these things, there's just like not much to talk about. Like the other people they're either going to be all conspiracy driven or yeah, and they're not gonna be able to critically engage on anything. Like how many times do we run loops on that like 74,000 like discrepancies, and it's like, bro, there's something else to say about this, you know?
Yeah, and I realized at the very beginning, like we're gonna evict them from the lawn, you know, like you're like, okay, what the hell are we gonna do for? Yeah, and that was one of the main things I was gonna ask you, because this is one of the main things I've reflected about. Is I felt that, and I want your honest opinion on this right now. When it comes to like all the quotes and stuff like that, I felt like at one point I might have pushed a little bit too hard with them, and we kind of got a bit like stuck on that, because it was just like, oh, you know, Nick would talk for a while and then I'll throw in a quote and then he would talk about it for a while, and then we
I think the quotes that you had to establish what they were doing in January 6th was really good. Quote mining from 5 years ago to talk about a political ideology, I don't think is as good. My audience is going to get really triggered, and they get triggered every time I say, I don't give a fuck. But like, I think that the political ideology of the extreme right on the internet has evolved quite a bit from 2016, 2017. I think it's like almost unrecognizable. I think it's way different than it used to be. So like, also I think that, yeah, I think it's better to deal on as much substance as possible, or as much, yeah, rather than trying to like mine a quote, I think, because especially if he's got like some explanation of like, well, this was an edgy quote. I mean, like, I don't know. I think it's weak if you're trying to condemn somebody's ideology and you're going to quotes from like 4 or 5 years ago. Then it makes it seem like, because his response is really good. Well, I do a show every single day. I would probably say something so like, I stream like fucking 10,000 hours a year. I'm sure you can find a couple of quotes and be like, oh, like fuck these people, I want to kill this dude or whatever. But I'm not saying it all the time. But yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, then there was the other thing as well that
I think. Oh, sorry. Hold on, real quick on that. I think that I don't remember you and me were doing this, but the building on the idea is way better. Of like, there's a great replacement. You don't think we can work through the system or whatever, or at the very least, we don't always like to think of it this way, but it is okay to pull concessions out of them too. And I think that like because like as weird as it sounds, like even if you can't make them into something politically like you could at least move their politics a little bit. And getting Nick to admit publicly and say things like, yeah, we have to work within the system, we've got to use the system, like that is a good thing for him to say, even if you don't like me, even if we don't like his politics, it's good for him to say that. So I think that it was okay to get those types of admissions.
Yeah, and the other example was when I and I may have used some cringe terminology looking back at it, but when we talked about the whole genocide and what kind of like self-defense that would inspire or justify, how we eventually got to a point which it doesn't make much sense, but I mean it's good that he said it nevertheless, which is that we got to a point where he said, well, it's not necessarily justified to engage in violent self-defense against people who are genociding you. Which, however weird way we're now using the word genocide, where it describes an activity that somehow doesn't justify self-defense. At least we got that. That was like, hey, okay, it's still not okay. Even though I'm saying that these people are genociding you, you should like violence against them is still not okay, which is it's interesting. But like you said, I mean, it's an important concession, and I would I would agree with that.
Sure.
When it comes to like the development of stuff like that, because they seem very intent on bringing this into the domain of talking about the great replacement as a theory instead of what the actual topic was, right, which was the Buffalo thing. And I wish I could have talked with Nick a bit more about what he meant when he called it a false flag, because we never really talked about that. Like we got the whole mentally ill thing.
I think that's a really bad convo for them, so we probably should have focused more on that. It's hard to get like super deep into that, but them calling that a false flag is so stupid.
Yeah. And that was one of the main things. Was like, oh, we really should have talked about that more. And I mentioned in my intro, but then I just kind of forgot about it, so it was never brought up again. So having that brought up there again. And then there was another point where, which once again, I can kind of understand why we got stuck here a little bit, because it wasn't like we were there to debate the great replacement. But when it came to the I think that culture is like inherently derived from your race or whatever, and that's kind of like where it comes from. And with the question you asked about the secular Danes versus the
I was happy that I could get him to like be very frank, like, yeah, I'm a race realist. I think that I was happy to get that. I wouldn't call it a concession, I guess, if he's open about it, but it was good to get that up for the record, I guess, so there's no obfuscating there.
And then I think we probably could have pushed a bit more on that there then. So like, for example, I think you've done this one like quite a few times, like, okay, who am I going to have much more culturally in common with? Is it going to be X, other racial person from a different racial group from me that lives in my general area, or a person with the same racial group as me that lives far away? But we really never got into that. I think that would have been good.
Yeah, potentially.
If we would have mentioned that. But yeah. When it comes to, this is another thing that I want to see what your thoughts were on this. A lot of people felt like I was asking too many questions. And I wasn't stating as many like direct arguments. That was more of like a me asking this and then trying to build on that, but it didn't really fit the theme of the debate. How do you feel about it?
I could see people thinking that you were asking too many questions insofar as like, I think the issue wasn't you were asking too many questions. It's that every time you would ask a question, they would like take like 2 minutes to respond. So we were like losing momentum kind of. It's just, that's not necessarily your fault though. That was kind of the fault of the format. Like it was impossible for you ever to like ask a question and then get an answer. It seems like it was always just like we would ask a question and then they would ramble for like 3 minutes on something that's not really related, which was really frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I would agree that the format made that a bit worse, but I probably could have adapted to it in the moment, nevertheless. What would you say? So you said that the quote mining was one of the major things. I was like, okay, when it comes to the second point, they were significantly weaker, but you said in the first part of the debate, they were really strong.
Yeah, quote mining to prove what they were doing during January 6th was really good. I think that was really good. Like, what did you mean? Because then they look really silly. What did you mean by evict them from the Capitol? What did you mean by evicting them? Well, just like from the lawn. He looked ridiculous there. That was so silly,
So there was that. I would agree that was one of the stronger points. But then the things about the questions a little bit, and then the quote mines for the second part were a bit weaker. What would you say? Was there anything else that stood out to you as like one of the main, like, I guess, like critiques or pieces of feedback that you would have for me in that debate? That something that I should probably think a bit more about.
Be less gay, lol. No, I'm just kidding. That was the big
goddamn. Okay, never mind. I'm not backing down. The cat ears was a fucking genius play. Okay.
Wait, did you wear cat ears?
Did you not see it?
No, did you have cat ears for that debate?
Not for the whole thing, but at the end, like Nick made like a comment about, I'm disgusting, I'm slimy, whatever, and I was like, you know what, I'll adapt to something that I know that you like a bit more, and then I put on fucking cat ears to fuck with him. And nice. Then he treated me significantly nicer after that for the remainder of the debate.
Cute.
So I'm not gonna back off from that. Okay, be less gay, be less.
No, I was just saying that because he called you gay. I didn't actually know you were actually acting gay. My bad.
Okay, you weren't even paying attention. Unbelievable. You missed the main debate tactic.
The main debate. I did. That was my bad. I fucked up.
Unbelievable. Okay. Well, apart from your bad piece of advice that I should maybe have worn cat ears, what was there anything?
I love his real gun.
No, I think everything else was okay. The only other like potential criticisms that I could have are really going to be like flavor criticisms. It's not going to be like you were wrong here. So like I think people noticed this during the debate that where I'm at now in terms of how I talk to people is I'm usually just trying to get some kind of like common ground thing so that I can either instill a little bit of sanity into what they're saying, or at least get them to admit that some of what they said is a little bit insane. I think that's typically what I push for. Whereas in that conversation, it seemed like you were pushing more for like, you need to understand that you are factually wrong on this, you're deductively incorrect on this, like just pushing for like huge concessions and then trying to like kind of like establish that you were like deductively more correct than them on things. I don't think either one of there is right or wrong. It's just like a different approach. Like I was happy to admit that like, oh yeah, you know, BLM did fucked up shit. Like that's okay. But like if you guys are gonna say BLM did fucked up shit, you gotta admit that like you guys are doing kind of fucked up shit too. That January 6th was probably not good as well, right? I think it's like a way that I usually go.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, and I think I do that for 90% of conversations. But then we run into, and this is like the classic. Maybe I'm trapped in 2016. Who fucking knows? But I mean, I was also, this is also something I thought about more when it comes to, for example, like the law question, and then the way that Nick was handling the debate when it comes to like how much he was talking, rambling about nothing. Don't you feel like the kind of like the strength and the importance of that thing of trying to like build that bridge and working towards like some common ground so you can work from there? Don't you feel like that's significantly hurt if the opponent may not be kind of engaging in the best of faith and is trying to deflect and distract and go to ridiculous interpretations of things, how that basically allows them to kind of like lead you around wherever you want?
It could be, but I think that it makes you look increasingly reasonable when you're willing to make an obvious concession and when the other person doesn't. It's hard for me to know the psychology of this, but just in terms of reading what people say when they email me and then reading comments in other threads, I do think that you have a troubling sense of reasonability, or you come off troublingly reasonable to some people when you're willing to make some concessions. So when somebody sees me debating Nick on like, hey, January 6th isn't okay because people say crazy shit and lead people to do crazy shit, like, okay, fuck you, Destiny. But if I'm willing to admit that like people jumping to conclusions on cop videos and running around screaming that ACAB shit, and then, you know, you see BLM riots happen, it's kind of what's going to happen. It's not good. When anybody in the right hears me say that, they're like, absolutely based, absolutely true, Destiny. Like that instills a version of me in their mind where it's like, okay, well, this guy definitely understands this at least, and nobody else on the left is willing to admit that. So he totally understands that. And if I'm saying, I'll admit that, but you got to admit that some of the rhetoric around January 6th, you scream and get off the lawn or whatever, probably not good for like what's going on at the Capitol. I think a lot of people will at least be like, you know, you're a little gay, but maybe. Yeah, you can pull them a little. It'll never happen to the people you're debating, but to the audiences, I think they'll see that. They'll be like, okay, he's at least reasonable, you know, which I think is a good start. But
okay, so I wonder then if this is brought about by a change in the way that you perceive how you think that like debates are perceived. Because I remember before you talked a lot about the main thing that people kind of look to and gravitate towards in debates are appearances of strength, right? And that's kind of like what you've talked about this as well before, how it's not about, you know, looking like you have the most reasonable arguments or whatever. It's mostly about like, hey, you look up to this figure, you think they're really smart, and if you see them kind of get like, you know, thrown around a bit in a debate, you're like, damn, that's kind of cringe, you know, this person wasn't an intellectual titan as I thought they kind of were. And in that scenario where you kind of analyze things like, you know, that the appearance of strength is one of the major, most important things in the debates. How does that square with the simultaneous belief that making like these, even though they're reasonable, making the concessions, which are fairly like inextricably tied to, you know, weakness and the more like one-dimensional view of it, at least. How do you think that those two things squared? Have you changed your perception of like strength being like maybe the most important thing in debates and discussions, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think the strength and bravado thing was a lot different when it felt like there were fewer people that believed in things. Like if I think that you have, I think that if you have some crazy fuck belief, like some insane fucking alt-right Jewish, like maybe we'll have a debate and I'll like just crush this out. And then the strength, because a lot of those people in the past dominated because they looked strong. I think that's where their power came from. Like, I am crushing the left in my debate prowess. That's where they came from. And I can match them on that level. But nowadays, I think that they're not coming across that way because they're super strong and powerful. It's because they seem more empathetic. They're willing to speak to problems that other people in society won't acknowledge. Nobody on the left will ever admit that, like, hey, maybe white people and men feel a little bit lost in today's society when society is constantly screaming, trying to capture the attention and the opinions and interests of minority groups. Maybe white men feel a little bit lost there. Nobody else on the left is willing to admit that. People on the right can appeal to those people without being strong. They do it by being empathetic. They say, like, hey, when you're white and everybody's saying like hooray for the Mayo side and, you know, fuck white people and fuck men, kind of feels pretty shitty. I understand that. Like, we can chat about that, you know? And if people on the right are willing to do that, they're not fighting a battle with strength. They're fighting a battle with compassion, as ironic and crazy as that is. It's just compassion for a certain group of people and not for others. So my goal is to I have to fight using their tools, because if they're gathering audiences with compassion and then I attack those audiences with strength or aggression, well, I'm reinforcing the compassion on their side. Like, Destiny's out here saying, like, fuck white dudes, fuck white people, and fuck our movement. And I'm out here saying, like, I'll give you a voice and I'll listen to you. Well, it's not going to make me look any good. It's just going to drive that wedge even further, I think.
Okay, so you would say that like a major change on the online politics, like kind of, community and discussions like that has shifted away from like attraction through strength to attraction to compassion. And that's why you've kind of changed your approach a bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what would be the difference between the way that you would handle somebody who you think is engaging like perfectly in good faith when it comes to discussions, and somebody who you think is kind of like lead you around, is being evasive and stuff like that? Is there any major difference? Or?
Yeah, you have to bring out like heavy duty debate tactics. You need to start like, and we did a decent job of this, but there are a couple. So like when Nick did it a few times, this is just like a practice skill. You need to be able to center on the convo, and you need to understand when your questions are being dodged. So I think there was a few times where there was one time especially where I was like, Nick, this was the Maricopa County response. Okay, well there's hold on, Nick, I'm reading the Maricopa County response. Okay, well, but there's all these discrepancies. Nick, these are the discrepancies from the response. Okay, like you have to be able to just walk back, boom, and hit it. If they're not going to respond to something, repeat it 2 or 3 or 4 times so that people can see you are not answering this question, and then you can move on afterwards. If somebody wants to squirm and weasel or whatever, that's fine. Just make them squirm and weasel for a little bit. Don't let them weasel out immediately. Let them weasel out after they've weaseled for quite a while, and then it makes you look better because then they look like they're being kind of dishonest in that, I think. So yeah. But you have to, that's like a practice skill of being able to hold, because it's very easy for people to drag you around by a leash and lead you to other points, because especially in this conversation where we feel like we can so confidently argue like every point, like it's almost fun to like, oh yeah, what do you want to talk about now? Oh, let's go to this. Oh yeah, let's go to this. But what you don't realize is when you're walking away from points you've got 100% wins on, you're actually like losing a lot of credibility there. You're losing a lot of your power. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was essentially the thing that I was worried about, right? Because I felt like there were strong arguments presented. I felt like we can make strong arguments for all the aspects of it. But when we were kind of being, thrown for a loop a bit like here and there, and we were talking about this and then we're talking about this, and at the same time, there were actually a few concessions like the ones we talked about before that came from Nick. So I guess that's kind of a bit more balanced. Then never mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think those were the main thoughts I had about the debate specifically, just out of curiosity, of course, beyond what I know about that we both worked together for the preparations. Was there anything in particular that you looked into for this, or did you just kind of like wing it?
I've read a decent bit about the election stuff, so I was pretty confident on that. And then I knew that the Buffalo conversation was going to be one of rhetoric and philosophy, so there wasn't very much like factual stuff to go off of for that. So this was just one of those ones where I don't know like how much I really needed extra shit for it.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. I think having the quotes though was really good for the January 6th stuff. If I was like doing a super serious debate on my own, that might have been something I would have thought about, because you want to having the footage. Yeah. Oh, there was more stuff even that people were linking me during the debate of like crazy shit that Baked Alaska was saying while he was at the Capitol. I watched one of the videos like where he's like in the office, like pretending to pick up a phone and being like, "Senator, we need to rescind the election results right now. Is that going to happen?" Like as a joke kind of, but like obviously like that's, if I would have had those kinds of quotes ready, it would have been pretty funny. But otherwise, I think having those quotes for that was like pretty important. But yeah.
Okay, I get you. All right, cool. All right, those are the main things I had to think about there. Now, I heard you were talking a bit before, and this is something that maybe I can weigh in on a bit, because I recently got out of high school. I'm just now starting like higher educational institutions. I didn't get the entirety of the discussion that you were talking about before when it comes to the way that, at least in America, you perceive that universities and colleges and stuff like that are catering to like a very general like.
Yeah, in the United States, it's gotten, I don't know if it's the same in Europe, but in the United States, it's gotten very, very, very Careberry, like very much like avoid all uncomfortable feelings, like make as infinite concessions and accommodations to uncomfortable students, and it's really cringe.
Okay. So I think discussions like this are really difficult to have, because unlike, things like workplaces and stuff like that, it's true to some extent to workplaces, but not nearly as much. you're kind of in higher education, you're in high school, and then you're not anymore. So it's not like you can go through high school once or whatever, and then see how that was then, and then go at it again and see like the ways that it's changed. And higher education, you technically can, if you want to like go back and complete a degree or like do another one when you're a bit older, it's possible. So it's hard to make these comparisons, but from the impression that I have gotten, at least in Europe, I get the impression that even though Europe on a lot of issues is significantly more left-leaning than the United States of America, from things, just things that I've picked up generally through reading and through seeing, like hearing people talk and stuff like that, like the Rittenhouse thing, for example. I do get the impression that despite Europe probably like on the whole being more left-leaning, it seems like in the U.S. when it comes to universities and those institutions, they're a lot further along there than what Europe is, which is confusing. Because
I don't think Europe. I don't know if you guys tell yourselves of this in Europe, but a lot of progressives in the United States, I don't really think Europe is that much farther left-leaning than the United States. I think if you look at a very narrow continuum of like some economic policies, I think that Europe, then Europe can come across looking a lot more left-leaning. But past that, like, I mean, you guys have vicious fights related to stuff like immigration, especially like 2013 and onwards.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got like people like Marie Le Pen would be considered pretty far right in terms of her rhetoric and shit in the United States. And she got, what was it, like 45% of the vote against Macron?
Yeah, Marie Le Pen was literally, and this is like a lesser known thing, like in 2013, she was literally like talking about the replacement of the French people. So
yeah, so this idea, it's a very American progressive idea that Europe is so far left, but like, no, I think you guys fight over, there's a big continuum of tons of different issues. And I think that when it comes to social issues, I say this and I get emails on both sides of it, but I'm pretty sure when it comes to social issues, the United States is quite a bit farther left than Europe. Like in the United States, like we have states that allow for like elective abortions in the third trimester. I don't know if that exists anywhere in Europe. And that's what we are essentially fighting for with where people are saying like you should be able to have an abortion, an elective abortion at any point in your life. When it comes to like gays, I was gonna say gay and trans rights, and then I said gays. When it comes to like gay people, when it comes to like trans rights, when it comes to like puberty blockers and medication for children, like America pushes like pretty progressively on a lot of this stuff. Like I don't know if in Europe, if you guys talk about like reparations for people, I guess it's not like a mainstream conversation, but yeah, I disavow this idea. I push back against this idea like America's super conservative and all this shit. Well, I think that like we are pretty progressive when it comes to social issues, like compared to, I mean, like you might be able to go to like Berlin and find a bunch of like, a particular type of person, but across like the entirety of Europe, I think that, I think that America is pretty decently left when it comes to social issues.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think that at least parts of like because Eastern Europe, it's like the same thing kind of like in the US. I'm making like broad statements about the entirety of the US. It's going to be reductive to like a pretty great extent, and the same thing is going to be true in Europe, right? The differences between like Amsterdam or like Poland or Hungary, and the cities there is like it's stark. It's massive.
Fuck. Wait, hold on. Real quick. This guy's even said this in chat. Your drug policies still suck in many states, though. Bro, what are you talking about? Wait, how many countries is marijuana legal in Europe?
Yeah, we actually in Sweden, which is regarded as one of the most progressive countries in the world, we have absolutely dog shit drug policy.
Yeah, like even in Amsterdam, I thought all drugs were available to buy in stores and shit in Amsterdam because that's what they say in the United States. You go to Amsterdam and buy a drug. No, you can't. You can buy like fucking truffles and marijuana. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's any European nations that have marijuana legal. So yeah, like it's not like get the fuck out of here with this bullshit. And we've legalized it in a lot of our states at this point. Marijuana, even CBD products got banned in Sweden. Wow. But it's funny because in Sweden you can walk into stores and they have like all these gas canisters for balloons. But
oh my, yeah, we have that, and that's the thing about because Sweden has such good, but like the country. First of all, to get on the previous thing, the country in Europe that has the most progressive drug policy would be Portugal.
Portugal, yeah, but they also legalize like all like didn't they legalize like child shit too? Like
Portugal is doing some crazy.
I think they did. I think they legalized like all that shit. Like Portugal is like very much out there for shit. Like.
Yeah, exactly. But I can only speak to the drug front because that's what I've looked into. And essentially, what they did is they. I
don't know if that's 100% true, guys. Sorry, just I don't. But okay, go ahead.
You're saying you're not an expert on pornography laws?
I'm not, unfortunately, but.
Okay, all right, just a second. Yeah, so like with the way that Portugal does is like, and this is kind of the general progressive kind of agenda and viewpoint on this, which is that drug issues should be no longer considered like a legal issue principally, unless we're talking about like cartels and stuff like that, when we're talking about just private use, and considered more of a medical issue.
Sure.
And Portugal did that, and they really did that in a proper way. So use of all drugs, any and all drugs in Portugal is decriminalized. So you're not going to face any criminal repercussions. Does that mean that you can just fucking shoot up heroin on the street and nothing will happen to you? No. If you're like, in a specific like public place and you're doing drugs, if you're like, heavily like impacted by them and you're at a point where you're a threat to yourself or other people, you'll be taken in for care or whatever. But you're not going to face any criminal charges.
Sure.
I think at the worst you can be put into hey, you got to get in here, you got to rehab, and you can face sanctions. Like if you're a teacher or like a taxi driver or whatever, you can have like revocations of those licenses depending on what you do. And the results in Portugal have been excellent when it comes to overdoses and drug problems, even among youth and all this. So Portugal has done that really well. So I think in Europe we have some of the most progressive drug policy, but then you also have a bunch of other random shit.
Sure.
But yeah, like you were saying in Sweden, and this would be so easy, and this is something I've been harping about for so long, because Sweden is so progressive in so many regards, but our drug policy is really bad, and the stats when it comes to drug overdoses and deaths and stuff match our terrible drug policy. We have some of the highest, I think, I'm not sure if it's overdose deaths or if it's drug deaths or drug issues, like, negative outcomes from drugs in the entirety of Europe, actually, because of how bad our policies are. And we can easily integrate that because, do you know what Systembolaget is?
What?
Systembolaget has...
That's not your... Is that your stupid fucking alcohol store?
Yes, our based alcohol.
Oh god,
Excuse
dude.
me.
Dude, I feel like I'm entering like a fucking quarantine zone where you've got like it's all fucking white and plain on the inside, and there's like the people staring at you. I feel like I'm in fucking trouble. Like I'm buying a shelf abortion, and it's a fucking like store full of priests. Okay, fuck you. That shit is weird. They do that in like Vancouver and I think in other parts of Canada as well, where they have like the only people that are allowed to sell alcohol are like the government stores. But yeah. What about
I think that's gigabyte. I think that's really cool. I don't know. I haven't had the experience of like the cold customer support workers. If anything, like the experience I have, obviously, I'm not. I think it's 20 in Sweden. I'm not 20 yet, so I can't go in and buy for myself. But
Sure.
there have been like a few times where my parents have gone and bought or whatever, and I just like kind of tagged along. And it's fine. You can be there in the store underage, as long as with your parents or whatever. And they've always been really friendly. But it is true what you say about it being a bit more dull. So for example, you will not see, discount, you can get, a 12-pack of beer and another 6-pack for like half the price or whatever. Yeah. You won't see that, right? Because the Swedish government is like, we don't want to do things that encourage people to drink too much. I don't think you can even get like 6 packs of beer. And like the traditional plastic rings, you can get kind of like cups of like boxes of cider. But a lot of that kind of in bulk purchases that psychologically kind of encourages people to buy more than what they might really need is taken away. And I think that if we like incorporated marijuana into that system as well, we already have the infrastructure for it. It would be perfect. It would be excellent.
Yeah, I just don't know if your older population would be in favor of that, but
yeah. That's the problem then. It's a popular thing because we are just as a nation, we're generally really opposed to like more liberalization of drug policies. We're progressive in a lot of ways, but in that way we're really held back. But ideally, assuming that we could shift the ideas like that, we really have like a good like avenue to do so. And it's going to be so helpful for so many other things because it's going to bring in a fuck ton of tax revenue. We know from like studies, police reports in Sweden that the sale of like marijuana and similar drugs like hash and stuff like that makes up like the base income for some of the criminal gangs we have in Sweden and stuff like that. So essentially we can take that money out of those gangs, which is a good thing in itself, right? So there's just so many positives to it, but for some reason like Swedes are too fucking scared of I don't know, the devil's lettuce or something.
Sure.
So we're kind of stuck there at the moment, but yeah, in a lot of ways it feels like in maybe like the 90s, 80s, 70s, like Europe was generally more progressive than the US, I would say, on the whole. And then it feels like the US just like really rapidly just like steamrolled their way through a lot of things, and then they did that really quickly. And then in a lot of significant ways they've passed Europe in significant regard. And then we kind of see some of the negatives that come with that, like when you were talking about the educational institutions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only experience like that I've ever had is there was one point. Okay, how much can I talk about this? I think I should be fine. But I had like one. It was like a work group or whatever for my university then, where we were talking about like migration. We were having a classroom discussion on it, which is a good thing. Like we were having a discussion where you were presented with like, hey, here are a bunch of arguments people use against migration. They bring crime. They can't culturally assimilate. Like all these things, and the classroom had to confront them and deal with them. I think that's really good. I think that's a good thing in itself. Unfortunately, there was an incident where one of the teachers I had at the moment, we were talking about one of the things where some migrant groups are overrepresented in crime. Like how can you assure, like we were doing some EU roleplay thing, that the states will be able to deal with this in a good way? And then we worked that question, but then afterwards when the activity was done, the teacher was like, guys, just remember that minorities and migrants aren't actually overrepresented in crime stats. It's all just racist statistics. I was like, hold on.
Okay.
But then I talked to the teacher, but that wasn't very good. That wasn't a very great experience. But then I took that to and talked to somebody else, and the supervision was kind of was on my side on that. And then that got changed, and some of the groups got moved around, or whatever. So they did take action. So you said before how it's often not the professors, it's mostly the administration.
In the U.S., I don't know. I can't speak to the cultural law.
Yeah, in the U.S.
In the U.S., our administrators are very, very far left, and they oftentimes butt heads with faculty a lot. It's a big thing.
Yeah. So here and once again, I cannot stress this enough. Okay. I have literally only been in university for 6-7 months, something like that. Okay, I'm by no means an expert. This is my first year. Okay, not making any broad research statement. I'm just talking from my personal experience. Okay, personal anecdotes. But after all, hey, if we get enough anecdotes,
the plural of anecdote is data, right?
Exactly. So we can be able to form a data-driven opinion here. But yeah, so the administration was a bit more sympathetic. But yeah, that was a fucking crazy story. Like I remember I talked to the teacher after, and I was like, hey. So I haven't seen this talked about anywhere with how it's all like racist statistics. Can you tell me where I could find something like that? And she was just like straight up, no, I can't. I was like, okay, can you tell me a general direction? I was like, no, you just have to. It exists, trust me, but you'll have to find it yourself. I'm like, okay, thanks. So yeah, it was literally the Twitter thing, where it's like it's not my job to educate you, but from a fucking teacher.
Yeah, so it kind of is her job to educate you, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, that's the only one experience I had, and the school resolved it in a good way. So yeah, but that's the only experience I've had. But it happened even within a context there where it was about challenging ideas. So I think that I would say from my very personal experience that Europe is a bit better with that than what I've heard in the U.S. The only time we've ever had a thing like you guys had with Rittenhouse was when the war in Ukraine started, and then we had a letter sent. I was like, hey, we sympathetic towards our students in the region that are Ukrainian, that are Russian as well, and just know that hey, if you're impacted by this conflict in any way or you're worried or whatever, you need to talk about it. That there are support options available, and I think
that's probably fair.
Yeah, there's literally a war in your continent, right? With and there's actually a lot of Ukrainian exchange students in Amsterdam, so I don't think it was a very reasonable thing to do. But yeah, we didn't have any Rittenhouse thing. That would have been some crazy shit if we in Europe got that way.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, and if you were 18 when you originally got into politics, or around that age range. If you had the whole 2016, if you debated JonTron, okay, when you were 17 or 18, whatever, what would be the main thing you would kind of take with you from that period of time, if you were to kind of be come into contact with an ulterior version of yourself that was that age, that was receptive to criticism, because I know you've said this before that you wouldn't listen to your past self.
Yeah.
Regarding engagement with politics and stuff like that, and what's one of the major things you've learned, do you think, from?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to try to talk to a whole bunch of people and get a whole bunch of perspectives. That's probably the most important thing that I've learned, that it's taken me a long time to do that. But something I'm going to be doing a lot more for every future conflict is asking people to email me with certain perspectives, because getting to just sit into a sphere of all these other people's perspectives and absorb them makes you infinitely wiser than trying to logic or reason how people should feel about a certain thing. And then once you have that understanding, then you can navigate that understanding. You have to have a good sense of self first, though. You don't want to lose yourself in other people's experiences. Just because people have an experience, there's a lot of good reasons why conservatives might be there's a lot of understandable reasons why a conservative might be racist, but it doesn't make it right, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to change it. But I think just having a lot of perspective on why people believe the things they do is probably the most important thing I can think of.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I would agree with that. I would say that this is also something I meant to ask you. Do any comments get to you anymore? like whatsoever, or are you just like you've grown thick enough skin that you're basically
Depends on what you mean
by
by get to you. Like there are things that annoy me. I don't like when people don't understand my positions, or people mischaracterize me. That like irritates the fuck out of me. But in terms of like truly like to the core, like really upsets me, nothing online does. But nothing in life does. I'm a very like isolated person when it comes to like emotional support. Like if I've got problems, I don't talk to anybody. I just like, that's just the way that I process things. So that's a little abnormal, I think. It's not like there should be like a goal or yeah.
I promise you, this is not me minding you for things I'm gonna do when I inevitably backstab you in a few months. Okay.
No problem, buddy.
Now, I would say that fortunately, and I never had this, and this is kind of what I thought going into online politics. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be talking with some really like fucking crazy people. They're gonna say a lot of crazy shit, and I've heard the craziest, and you have as well. You have all the lore about your random, like you have a hidden daughter somewhere or whatever the fuck. And I've had some stories as well, like do you remember the Swedish government handler story that I told that guy? The night before. That's actually something that I had somebody like sending me an email about, me like, hey, like this is what I think you are.
Okay,
and shit like that. People thinking that I'm trans, like that I'm like in multiple ways, that I'm like FTM, and I've kind of gone through my transition, that I'm MTF and I'm about to start my just like random fucking shit written like about me like everywhere all the time. And then obviously like the appearance thing, even had there been the debate about like, oh, you look fucking Jewish, you have the curly hair, whatever, those types of things. And then the slurs that come with that, obviously. But those things never get to me. I'm not bothered at all by them. But one thing that actually really does, and this can be like this can be the smallest comment, this can be like a fucking whomegalo, like nobody, it's like a random comment that maybe isn't even published, it's like held for review on my YouTube channel, right? And that is when somebody like tells me about something and they say that I'm like I'm incorrect, I have misunderstood something, or my argument isn't good, or something like that. I will read every single one of those comments and assess them, and if they're correct, it doesn't matter how big the comment are. It can be a tiny comment, I will feel like really like negatively about.
Wait, because you were wrong about an argument or something, or
yeah, exactly, that, or like a fact or something like that, something that I was incorrect about. That will really get to me, and I've gone better at it, but it still really gets to me, and it's a double-edged sword, because that thing drives me towards doing things as good as I can. But then inevitably, I'm always going to be wrong about things, and then it just hits me really strongly, like the negative feelings when there is something that's wrong. Did you ever have that thing? Because I remember you said before how you expected to get more of those types of comments, have to take those seriously, but you just kind of get like random insults or whatever.
Yeah. So here's this is a piece of advice that I give a lot. Okay, you should be married to outcomes, but never to processes. And as long as you have that mentality, it's very easy to be wrong about some things. So like for me, when it comes to healthcare, I am opposed to single payer healthcare. And I'm opposed to single payer healthcare. I don't like our current system either. I think a multi-payer system is best. But I don't actually give a fuck about single payer, multi-payer for private health insurance. I super don't give a fuck. What I care about is how do the most number of people get covered as possible in a reasonable way, right? That everybody can afford it and you've got like good coverage. That's actually all I care about. If somebody comes up to me, and I'm a huge proponent of single payer, I like single payer, that's my thing, and somebody shows me that multi-payer is better, I'm a single payer guy. I like identify with it. It's almost like part of who I am. It's like a character trait of mine. I like single payer healthcare, right? It becomes very, very, very difficult for me to move off of that position because it's a little bit like a part of who I am. I'm a gamer, I'm a musician, hopefully, and I'm a single payer guy, right? But if I'm more attached to the idea that like, listen, I just want the most people to get covered as possible. If you're telling me that there's another way to do it, okay, I'll just take that way then. That's fine, right? Like, I'm not here to fight about single payer versus multi-payer versus free market healthcare. I'm here to fight for whatever gets the most people covered. And if you show me a study or some data that proves that like, oh, these countries use multi-payer, these blah, blah, blah. Oh, single payer works. Okay, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, I'll do that. That's fine. Try to get like more attached to outcomes, things that are like almost a roundabout way. Like if you've got like ethics, political policy, and then like effect at the end, try to just tie, you're taking your ethics and you're tying that to the effects at the end. That's what you're really after. The political process here, the policies, it's just a way to express your ethics. Politics is a way, policy, prescriptions. A prescription is just a way to take a meta-ethical idea and apply it to every single person. That's all it is. Don't get too attached to it. If you find a different process that applies your ethics in a better way, then switch processes. Because 99% of your debates aren't going to be about outcome. Everybody's going to say, well, I think most people should be happy, healthy, take advantage. Everybody's going to agree with that. 99% of your debates aren't going to involve ethical discussions. Most people believe that like we should generally treat everybody well, that most people should have the ability to pursue life, liberty, pursue. Most of your disagreements are going to be policy. So as long as you can change this opinion without feeling personally attacked, usually you're in a decent place, I think.
Yeah, and I think this was one of the I've heard you say this before, and I 100% agree with that, and I've tried to incorporate that more. But then I still get the feeling that like, hey, you know, if I've been arguing for this as like a means to do something for so long, and obviously like in my head, if somebody asked me, oh, why do you do this? Oh, I would say, you know, because of the outcome, obviously. But it kind of comes with time. It's not an attachment to the thing, but it's just like, you know, if I've been doing this thing, and I've been doing it for very little, especially compared to you, right? Just a few years, and then, you know, like a few years, and I'm like, hey, by the way, you're totally wrong on this. I'm like, fuck, you know, for the past X months, for the past whatever, I've been saying something that was like incorrect, that was misleading, or was not reflective of what was actually going on. And then that really gets to me, and that's an outcome oriented thing. But it gets to me in a different way. Now there's something else that kind of plugs in here, which is the kind of like the radical, kind of like radical optimist thing, and I try my very hard to like force myself into this way of thinking, because I think it's the best, it's the most productive way of thinking. But it's like, hey, you made a mistake. It's bound to happen. What's important is that now you are closer to what's most accurate. Yeah. And you focus on, I've had this call out, and now I'm better for it, instead of you had this call out, oh, what about every bad thing you've done while you weren't aware of this, you know? And that's been like another thing that's been going on there. But yeah, I don't know. It can be like the case where I can have like a debate. It can be like a 2-hour debate, and I'm on top of it the entire time. Then like one point, like halfway through, I mix up like a number or a stat or whatever that's
or whether a cop died from mace or whatever, right?
Exactly, something like that. And then that will, like, I thought about that. I legitimately thought about the cop mace thing for like fucking 2 hours.
Yeah,
I'm not fucking with you.
I've not. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And I'm still trying to get over that shit. But it's like it can be like, you know, and even in debates where I was like really dominant on top of everything, there's like small fuck up, and then bang, my friend's I'm gonna think about that for the fucking rest of your night. Okay, fuck you. You know, you're not gonna be allowed to sleep. And that's like one of the major things, because for you know, like a young brain and everything, this type of like online space with so much like people fucking looking at your shit and everything, it's probably not healthy. Like fucking social media as a whole is just, it's not a good idea for young people. It's some bad shit. But yeah. You've never had anything like that, or?
I mean, yeah, it happens every now and then. I always try to reframe it as that like I'm learning new things, and I'm excited to learn new things, and that's how this is like an emotional thing, not an intellectual thing. You just kind of have to like feel it over time. Like I'm always happy to learn new stuff. I think that once you've changed your opinions enough, eventually like you'll feel okay about it. And also like make sure that you have an appropriate amount of conviction for what you're saying, and appropriately scale what you're saying to what you know. I had to do this a lot, and I had to teach people, even though nobody learns anything. I had to tell people to do this a lot when we were talking about the. I have never made a statement, maybe I've misspoke once, but I've never, ever, ever truly made the statement, ivermectin is not and will never be an effective treatment for the coronavirus. I've never said that. My statements have always been, the data so far shows that ivermectin is not effective. Tons of RCTs, lots of data. It's pretty unlikely that it's ever going to be effective, but maybe one day. But where it stands right now, it doesn't look like it. When I make a statement of that level of strength, then if a future study comes out that shows like, holy shit, there was a huge RCT when they, you know, did this, they added this. Now it looks like ivermectin's pretty well. I can easily be like, oh, okay, well, hey, now there's data that shows that ivermectin is pretty effective. So yeah, sure, you know. Just be careful the level of strength, right? So hopefully, now obviously debates get heated, but like, you know, I'm not saying things like, you know, like this is never going to be politically viable that we can do. We can never do this with student loans. Maybe that changes. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 3 years, something does change. It's like, oh, you know what? Hey, it is politically viable now. If my earlier statement would have been like, as long as it's not politically viable, we shouldn't pursue this. When it becomes politically viable, oh, well, now we can pursue it. And it doesn't feel like I'm being a big hypocrite or like I have to like totally change all my beliefs, you know? I'm just like always making the appropriate levels of conviction for whatever it is I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and I 100% agree. That's helpful in large ways. Like there was, recently, like I had a thing where I had done a few debates where I had mentioned I had like a random call-in. This is always what it's fucking, and there was veganism came up there, right? And I had some arguments against, like against veganism there, and then it began the veganism vortex, okay? And then I talked, and most of the conversations there were absolutely terrible. But then I talked to like a few really helpful people, and then I actually ended up changing my mind. So I'm vegan at the moment, which is why I've come here to debate you, Destiny. No.
Nice.
But that's one of the things that. Because of like the way I think I did my statements there, that having to change my mind there, even though it's like a really significant thing, right? Because it's like a lot of moral and ethic things, that felt not as bad as like even something like small like the cop thing yesterday. But it's also a double-edged sword because I'm worried that if I detach myself too much from stuff like this, then I'm gonna lack the drive to get better. Because even though I get these like really negative things, whenever I get something wrong, where I'm like, fuck you, you're gonna think about this for 2 hours now, you're not gonna be able to sleep. That also comes on the flip side as well, where like, if I do something well, I'll get something similar, and then because of that, I'll be like, hey, I gotta drive myself to get my shit correct because I don't want to feel like that again, right? So it's like a double-edged sword there. But yeah, I'm gonna think about the things that you said and try to incorporate them as much as possible. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna sound. This is gonna be some absolutely schizo posting. Okay. That I'm about to tell you. All right. I'm super curious if you have something that's similar to this. But will you ever have a thing where if you've like been streaming all day or whatever, when you're trying to like go to sleep and like in between like your sleep cycles when you're kind of like semi-awake, semi-asleep, you think you're like streaming in your bed?
I've had kind of thing. I think every streamer's had things like that before. I've had streams where I've woken up and I'm 100% positive. I'm 100% positive I've been permabanned from like Twitch because I like said the N-word or something, just like something crazy. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like checking me. I was like, oh god, wait, or like, but I have pretty realistic dreams like that sometimes, where I'll wake up and I thought I had like a really important phone call with somebody that was like really emotionally important, and then I wake up I was like, oh fuck, did I talk to that person last night? And I'll have to message them like, did we chat or whatever? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, you're not just saying that because like really bad shit happened. They're like, no. I'm like, okay, just like I think it happened. I think it's probably a normal human thing. Yeah.
Okay, I just need to check because like it can be super intense, like legitimately, like I'm because normally my dreams I can actually tell that it's a dream, but whenever I have the streaming thing, I genuinely think that I'm streaming, and then all the pressure from like, oh, now people are watching me, and then also like often like if I'm fucking in my bed and I kind of think I don't know, my stream has started somehow and I'm like in bed streaming, I'm like, oh fuck, I don't want to get TOS or anything, like shit like this. It's like, and yesterday as well, there was where I would have like a dream that I was streaming and I was doing the debate that we just had, but I was saying the most stupidest shit, like in the dream version of this fucking debate I had, and then I woke up feeling like shit. Yeah, okay. It's good to know that I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
This experience. Okay, good to know. The final thing I have here, okay, is it was coming eventually. Okay, the Lauren question.
The LQ. What's up?
The LQ. Exactly. First of all, what the fuck? I'm to this day I have no idea what the meaning of your quote tweet was.
Which quote tweet?
You like when I made a tweet asking Lauren Southern for that debate, you replied with a fucking image. What was it?
I just listen, okay. I'm gonna let you in a little secret, okay? You ready?
Fucking so confused.
I'm gonna let you in a little secret, okay? I have like at any point in time here. I've got one right now. There you go, sneak preview. At any point in time, I have random Among Us images on my fucking desktop that I always want to tweet out, and every now and then I'll see a tweet and it's like, I'm gonna throw an Among Us on that one, and I think that's exactly what happened with your tweet.
I think that is exactly what happened. So and I was so fucking confused because there's like 6 million possible interpretations. Because the image you had was like slang adjective for someone who you think is not what they seem, especially if they might be the imposter in the game Among Us. And I was like, okay, what the fuck? Is it that the request is suspicious? Is it that
I literally just had an Among Us meme and I saw your shit. Yeah, and I'm like, fuck it, this will be funny. And I just threw it.
Is it saying that you might want to moderate it without talking to you first? Is that suspicious? Am I sus for like trying to blame it? Like, I don't know what the fuck that meaning was. And I was mind fucked by it for like 10 minutes just trying to figure that shit out. So now I know to never take any of your tweets like, seriously ever.
Not any Among Us tweets. If there's Among Us involved, then you never know what's going on. Okay.
Okay. So there was. So it's just like, oh, here's a random tweet. I'm just gonna fucking slap an Among Us on that baby. Is that just?
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I've been looking all day today. I want to throw this rock guy out there. He's a good Amogus guy. I'm just looking for the right tweet to do it.
Just waiting for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. All right, cool. But have you been following any of the things between me and Lauren, or are you?
I see them pop up every now and then on Twitter. I think didn't you challenge her to a debate, and then I think did you post on my subreddit that did she reject it?
It was really funny actually because fuck, I don't want to do that whole fucking lore thing. But the thing is, Lauren replied to your fucking Amogus quote tweet. And what the fuck did she say? Hold on.
Oh, she asked me to do the debate instead, I think, right?
Exactly. And she just completely fucking ignored.
Yeah, because I think I've earned enough trust with her. She's like a scared cat kind of who like doesn't want anybody to rub her belly, but I can like pet her head or whatever. Basically, I think is that sounds way too
the
weird.
cat analogy.
Yeah, the cat analogy. Yeah, I think she's just really worried that somebody's gonna try to rub her belly when she's not looking. I think that when there's it's not just Lauren actually. Vosh actually says some of the things, but there's this weird dynamic that exists when you're like a big content creator that like everybody's out to like fucking nail you on some shit. And the worst feeling in the world is that like you kickstart a career by some like hater that comes and like owns you in a debate over some crazy technical shit that you weren't ready for. That's I think it's probably, if I had to guess, that's probably her fear on it. Like even
to
with
be honest, okay, if she's not like some random technical shit, is her replacement to like her relationship to like the Great Replacement? I don't know what to say, but yeah, but
I'm not sure. Hold on, sorry to be clear, so because my audience is about to make 50 million new threads on about it. I'm not justifying her position or saying it was good or whatever, but I'm saying like even if you listen to her conversation with Pisco, even on that one for quite a while in that conversation, she was like pretty guarded because she wasn't sure if Pisco was just trying to like nail her and shit or whatever. So that's just like the virtue or the nature of like people in those political arrangements. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is what 3-5, and this made me even more confused. So true. King is what she called you. Rosewrist is the imposter. I could just debate you on the subject. Question mark or a bit spooked by decision trees. Ooh.
Oh, the decision trees must be because she reads my subreddit. Yeah, that's a whole other random thing. But
and then yeah.
And
then I replied,
listen, if I'm saying anything about like imposter shit, I've never even played Among Us, so I don't even know what half the shit means. I just spam the words because they're funny. Okay.
I say, oh, it makes sense that you can play Among. You're like you're an empath, right? So that's also why you don't play Among Us.
Exactly. True.
Because you'd lose all your friends.
Exactly. They would know what's going on.
Fucking 4.2%. What did he say?
I thought it was higher. It was like 17%, but yeah.
7. Oh yeah, 17. That was actually pretty high. You're right. Yeah. And then I replied to Lauren Street asking if she was venting from me, and she didn't answer.
Damn.
So this
bitch.
Whoa.
Or
oh
not,
my God. Weren't you on the anti-misogyny arc?
True.
Excuse me?
My bad. Well, she's a man.
Are you relapsing?
She's
right
a man
now?
in Ontario, isn't she? So technically, it's not misogyny. It's respecting trans rights.
All right. Excellent. Okay. But yeah, otherwise, that was the main. I just wanted clarity to the Among Us tweet. Okay. But now that I know never to take any of that.
I'm sorry. I hope you didn't stay up too late thinking about that one.
No, I didn't. No,
I sure didn't.
That was like a 10-minute of like, what the fuck does he mean by this? Does it? Yeah. But then it got resolved, so don't worry. It was fine. But yeah, no. Lauren something like acknowledge your thing, but she didn't acknowledge my tweet or anything.
Or
mine
piece
at all.
of shit. Damn.
I know, unbelievable, disgusting. But yeah, that's as far as I'm gonna get with the Lauren question right now. If there are any new developments, I might bring it up again. But yeah, we'll see. Okay. Yeah, those were the main things I had in mind. Is there anything that you want to talk about or that you're thinking about?
Not that I can think of right now, bud.
All right, excellent. Well, I enjoyed the debate yesterday. I really appreciated the preparation we did. It was super helpful.
Yeah.
And
wait, what are you going to school for? What's your major?
So I'm currently majoring in sociology at like honors level, and then I'm thinking of after that doing a PPLE degree, which is politics, psychology, law, and economics.
Gotcha. You mentioned this. Okay.
Yeah, with like a focus on law, I think. That's what I'm currently oriented towards. But we'll see what fucking happens. But yeah. That's what my demo. Game of Thrones from fucking chat. Half of the shit that Destiny talks about on stream is like directly related to sociology, okay? Unbelievable. You guys, Game of Thrones, and all this shit, when Destiny wouldn't be able to do what he's doing if it wasn't for the domain of sociology, okay? All these sociology, that needs to be your new arc, okay? Anti-sociology arc, okay? Destiny?
Okay. I'll keep that in mind after we finish our anti-misogyny arc, okay?
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Well, enjoy your video gaming and your very successful housekeeping.
Thank you. Be careful, buddy.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.